Synopsis of the Books of the Bible. 2 Corinthians. By JND Darby. New Testament. 2 Corinthians. Chapter 11. False teachers and the absolute devotedness manifested in the apostle's life, the living source. In 2 Corinthians 11, jealous with regard to his beloved Corinthians with a godly jealousy, he carries yet further his arguments relating to false teachers. He asks the faithful in Corinth to bear with him a little, while he acts like a fool in speaking of himself. He had espoused them as a chaste virgin to Christ, and he feared lest any should corrupt their minds, leading them away from the simplicity that is in him. If the Corinthians had received another Christ from the teachers lately come among them, or another spirit, or another gospel, they might well bear with what these teachers did. But certainly, the apostle had not been a whit behind in his instructions, even if they compared him with the most renowned of the apostles. Had he wronged them by receiving nothing at their hands, as these new teachers boasted of doing, and in taking money from other assemblies, and never being a burden to them? A subject for boasting, of which no one should deprive him in the regions of Achaia. Had he refused to take anything from them because he loved them not? God knew no. It was to deprive the false teachers of a means of commending themselves to them by laboring gratuitously among them, while the apostle received money. He would deprive them of this boast, for they were false apostles. As Satan transformed himself into an angel of light, so his instruments made themselves ministers of righteousness. But again let them bear with him while he spoke as a fool in speaking of himself. If these ministers of Satan accredited themselves as Jews, as of the ancient religion of God, consecrated by its antiquity and its traditions, he could do as much, a Hebrew of the Hebrews, and possessing all the titles to glory of which they boasted. And if it was a question of Christian service to speak as a fool, certainly the comparison would not fail to show where the devotedness had been. Here, in fact, God has allowed this invasion of the apostles' work by these wretched Judaizing men, calling themselves Christians, to be the means of acquainting us with something of the indefatigable labors of the apostle, carried on in 1,000 circumstances of which we have no account. In the Acts, God has given us the history of the establishment of the assembly in the great principles on which it was founded, and the phases through which it passed on coming out of Judaism. The apostle will have his own reward in the kingdom of glory, not by speaking of it among men. Nevertheless, it is profitable for our faith to have some knowledge of Christian devotedness, as it was manifested in the life of the apostle. The folly of the Corinthians has been the means of furnishing us with a little glimpse of it. Troubles and dangers without, incessant anxieties within, a courage that quailed before no peril, a love for poor sinners and for the assembly that nothing chilled. These few lines sketch the picture of a life of such absolute devotedness that it touches the coldest heart. It makes us flee all our selfishness, and bend the knee before him who was the living source of the blessed apostle's devotedness, before him whose glory inspired it.